Hi everybody, welcome back to the Aurora Live channel. My name is Stuart Tan and I'm so glad that you're here. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please click on that subscribe button so that you'll receive our updates. Now, as with all things, we need to touch on a very foundational element in spiritual growth or growth in general. What I'd like you to consider is that there are ways by which we are moving around in the world and not really knowing what's going on in our lives. It's almost as if you let go of the steering wheel while you're driving a car. Now that's not really smart. In fact, one of the things that we've come to recognize is that there are several foundational practices in both meditation, spiritual practice, personal mastery practices, which will then make you so solid in your way of moving towards your outcomes and your goals that you don't experience the difficulty of the obstacle. Now, why do I mention this? Because there's a process we call discernment. So discernment is to set apart in order to distinguish. The word distinguish and discern are very similar in terms of their meaning. However, discernment has got a slightly more spiritual edge to it. So allow me to explain what I call the Discernment Star. For most of us, when we make a discernment, it usually is after the fact, something has happened and you're attempting to figure out what went on. For instance, you got into an argument and you're just wondering, where did that energy come from? Sometimes it's because you met someone and you feel completely drained of energy and you go, what gives? How come I'm so low on energy? But discernment can be as simple as physical discernment. You've collected some data about your health. You've done some calorie counting for certain types of foods. You've eaten a certain type of food and then the next day you feel bad about it. So when you notice this kind of a pattern, that's a form of discernment. So what we really want to do is identify patterns of internal as well as external behavior. Some types of discernment initiate from within, some types happen from outside of you. So let's start by taking a look at the 5 categories of discernment. The first one is known as intention. What exactly do you want? What exactly are you aiming for, right? So by understanding your intention, this is where you become clearer in terms of why you're doing certain things the way you're doing them. The second part, which I like to distinguish as a external observation, one of it is known as your expression. So expression revolves around your behaviors, your actions, the things that you say, and of course, how you say them. The third piece, which is also related to the external, is known as experience. But experience not so much in terms of you creating that's your expression, but rather being the recipient of it. That's known as experience. Your past feelings, sensations, in particular, things that have happened to you, places that you've visited, and those kinds of ways by which you understand the sensations in your environment, your being in that environment. So when I say feeling, I'm really relating to the tactile feeling rather than the emotional feeling. So these are the 2 things which come from the outside. Expression as you putting something out into the universe, and experience as the universe putting something inside of you. Now, the other 2 elements are what I consider as interplay between yourself and the external world. The first one is known as emotion. Now, emotion, not like what I mentioned earlier on in terms of feeling, tactile feeling, but rather the emotional feelings, the sensations of guilt, frustration, fear, happiness, joy, depression, all of those experiences that happen from within you. Now, those internal experiences and emotions come about as a result of an interplay between yourself and the external world. So it could be because of a certain person, it could be because of something that you've eaten, it could be some virus in the air that makes you feel a little bit under the weather, so to speak, and so on. So that's another aspect of discernment. The final aspect is known as energy. Now, it might sound a little esoteric, but the truth of energy is, we've walked past certain places, we've gone through certain times during the day where all of a sudden our physical energy just gets sapped away. Sometimes the energy that you experience from other people actually elevates you. You've listened to someone who's an energetic and charismatic speaker, for instance. You have gone to a sermon. You've listened to a very wise sage speaking about the truths of the world. And all of a sudden, your energy begins to expand. Conversely, there are some situations and some people which you're involved with, and all of a sudden, the energy just gets sapped away. Now, by being able to make a discernment, to set apart what happened, why it happened, how can you prevent it from happening again or allow it to happen again, this is the process of making discernment work for you. So hand in hand with discernment is the process of journaling, and I highly recommend that you take a look at these 5 areas as part of a self-reflection, self-awareness, analytics process. So I'm going to dive into some of these elements and give you some illustrations as to how you can go about doing it. So do stay tuned. Make sure you've got some writing material so that you can have some productive reflection while you're listening to this. So, did you learn anything from that video? If you did, just give it a thumbs up and then click on the subscribe button and hit the notifications icon so that you and I will continue to stay in touch and I can provide you with updates whenever we have new videos.